So that goes back to HeLa cells. So I talked about the fact that we could culture animal viruses to make vaccines, but all kinds of different things when we do that. So when we talk about viruses, the only way we can study them is to grow them
Okay.
in animal cells. What else? It's going to be a short review. Even everything's fun. Yes, class. No. Yes,
For malaria, do you want us to know the development of ring stage?
of the ring stage?
Uh-huh.
Yes, but that's also known as a merozoic and trophozoic stage. What are you saying?
How about the term schizophrenia?
Schizonts? So, no, because I didn't really talk about schizonts, no.
Okay.
I like the way you said this, what's schizones? What's a schizone? It sounds like something I wanna eat. What else?
It's only the Anopheles mosquitoes that cause malaria, right?
Yes, well, not cause,
They
transmit.
transmit, yes, okay.
But you need to know the 3 species of skeeters that are found in central Texas, which are Culex,
Aedes.
Aedes.
Well, you said that last time in class, so.
But still, right off the top of your head, you would have done well in HEB if I'd have caught you. Somebody thought they saw me the day and ran the other way. I can't remember who that was. That was cute. Yes?
Could you explain the function of a bacteriophage?
So bacteriophage is it's very interesting you asked that question, guys, because I came up with a very creative question about the bacteriophage. A bacteriophage is a virus that infects bacteria only.
That's one that has the little, it's like kind of like a spider.
Yeah. That's him. That's him. What else you got?
Would that be,
No, phagocytosis is different. So why did I say that, or did I ask that?
phagocytes and their role as
That's in unit 4. Are you sure you looked at the right one?
She's ahead of the curve.
She already did the third one.
She's like, I know everything.
Yeah, that's in unit 4.
I was like, over it.
I was like, I don't remember.
I downloaded the right one here, but the wrong one on here.
I'm like, well, okay,
Good question.
that is unit 4 stuff, okay, that's not.
That was a good question.
That was an excellent question. I'll answer that when we have unit 4 review. Tram,
Explain the word tinea and application clinically to infections of the body. So it's basically saying that tinea usually it follows by the body parts to make up the scientific name.
what was the first word you asked?
Tinea.
Oh, tinea, okay. So tinea is a made-up name. It doesn't really exist other than in the medical world. Tinea means ringworm. And so, because the dermatologist didn't want to say you got an infection by Trichophyton, Spermatophita, or Mycoplasmorum, they came up with the word tinea to mean ringworm overall, because you treat all ringworm the same no matter what organism it is. You just give an antifungal and it gets rid of it. But then, they decided that they needed to make it more scientific sounding. So what they did was they came up with a species name for tinea, but the species name were the parts of the body that they were infecting. So tinea corpus body, tinea capitis head, tinea barbare, the beard of men, and so different things like that. And so that's what I want you to know about that.
It's a euphemism.
What?
India, it was like created to make us feel a little more comfortable about what it is.
Yes, although nobody will ever say that, right? They'll just say, well, it's been in existence for a long time, you know, so it's just, but think about it. You have an infection by trichophyton. What the hell is that? But then if you say, if you have an infection by tinea, this guy got a little tingle. That's what my mom said one time when she had ringworm on her foot. She goes, the doctor said I had a little tingle. Next,
Can you go over what a mycotoxin is again, please?
a mycotoxin are toxins that are liberated by fungi. So that's really dealing with sick building syndrome.
Okay.
So, if we remember how we talked about how very few individuals are actually affected by mycotoxins. Okay? I said when we were talking about sick building syndrome, I said that very few people are actually affected by mycotoxins.
Okay.
The two organisms that produce the mycotoxins that you're interested in at this very moment in time are Stachybotrys and Cladosporium. They're also known as the black mold.
What was the second one? Stachybotrys and
Cladosporium.
Cladosporium.
Do you want us to know the name of the mole?
No, but Sam asked for it.
Cladosporium is the black mold.
Stachybotrys is the black mold.
Where do we get Cladosporium from?
Everywhere? It's everywhere.
Buildings, you're saying sick building syndrome.
Sick building syndrome. So it might be a question now, which organisms are associated with sick building syndrome? Would be Cladosporium and Stachybotrys. Okay? I like that question. Yeah, but
For the AIDS, during lecture I thought I heard you say, once you become an AIDS patient, you can't go back to being an HIV patient.
yeah, that's for insurance purposes. Because once you become an AIDS patient, you get certain benefits, or really sometimes not any benefits. Whereas if you're an HIV person, you're clinically positive for HIV, but you do not have the syndrome as we know as AIDS.
Okay, but the, threshold of measuring if you're AIDS or HIV is the T4 helper.
And other things also, but yeah, that's the big one. So a lot of times what might happen, Isabella, is that somebody might be given a transfusion or packed cells of T4 helpers. But even though your numbers are back above threshold, you're still an AIDS patient. We don't say, oh, well, today, your T4 helpers are normal, therefore today you're just an HIV positive individual. Once you've been diagnosed with having AIDS, you're always going to be an AIDS patient. You sure you know the difference between what the parameters that we talked about that defines HIV versus a AIDS patient?
Can you go over this again?
Yeah, HIV positive is just simply you've been exposed to the virus and you test positive for the virus. You're HIV positive. But to have AIDS, you must be HIV positive plus your T4 helpers need to be below currently 350 per microliter. And then you must have had some other opportunistic infection within the last 6 months.
Was Clostridium or any of those other?
No, usually not
Cryptosporidium.
Clostridium. Cryptosporidium, yes. Cryptosporidium, Aspergillosis penicillosis, PCP,
Cancer,
pneumonia,
lesions.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that wasn't enough?
No.
Okay. Yes.
Describe latent viral infections.
Latent? Latent is dormant, so that's also known as lysogeny. So, the two that I talked about were herpes and also
Shingles.
chickenpox. What else you got?
So bacteriophages they're not in the lung, they only affect bacteria.
Correct.
And they are broken down into their two different, they can reproduce by the lytic and the
Lysogenic.
lysogenic.
So there's a difference there, Samantha. So they reproduce or replicate is the better word, by lytic. But they go dormant lysogenic. Okay, so, we typically don't talk about lysogeny in bacteria until we get to unit 5. Diphtheria is a lysogenic bacterium, right? It gets transformed by a virus and then it becomes really, really dangerous. So let's not go any further than that here until we get to unit 5, okay?
So just close that lysogenic part out.
As going dormant.
Okay.
Okay? And then remember, the lysogeny cycle basically says that every cell that replicates, when the viral component is lysogenic, every single cell that comes from that line, that whatever, has that profile, has that virus part in it. Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Discuss the relationship of DNA and RNA viruses to cancer.
So we didn't really say too much about that. So what I will hold you to is that certain viruses, like human papillomavirus, can cause cancer. And that's the major one that we talked about, right? The human papillomavirus. There are others, but let's just stay there. Let's just say there are some viruses that can initiate the formation of a tumor, and of that, human papilloma is the one that we talked about the most at this moment. We'll talk about others later.
For the, explain the types of viruses based on nucleic acids, that's depending on the RNA and DNA.
That's it. DNA, RNA virus.
Number 6 on the virus virology section, and you were just kind of talking about this, so contrast the lytic and lysogenic cycles in the host relationship with the temperate.
Oh, temperophages, okay. So, I didn't really talk about temperophages, although another way to say temperophage is prophage. It's the piece of DNA that gets put into that cell forever. So, the lytic cycle is the replication cycle of the virus, right? And every single virus that replicates usually means death of the host cell at some point. So some of the viral components, when they're injected into cells, they can become lysogenic, and that means that they go dormant. But when they go dormant, they mutate, they transform the cells that they're infecting, and every single cell that comes from, as Samantha says, that parent cell, will have that temperate part of that virus or that prophage in them. And so at some point later on, you get stressed out for whatever reason, and the virus really affects you. And when you're the most vulnerable, that's when it affects you.
What is it about stress in the nervous system that causes that
Cell
reaction?
signals. So the cell signals in the body basically say, oh my God, we're releasing cortisol all over the body, and the body reacts to that by, oh, I don't feel good about myself, there's something going on, I'm real stressed out, and that's when the virus gets triggered, right? It turns the viral prophage on, and they start to replicate and use symptomology. It's all cell signals.
I've heard of a lot of people getting shingles after having COVID. Is that like just a stressed out response?
That is COVID is a stressor.
Okay. So they're not.
So if we had, shingles, and it was lysogenic or it was a prophage, then the COVID has compromised your
Turned it
immune
on.
system, has turned it on.
Because again, the nervous system, the entire nervous system, is dealing with that stressor. And when it's dealing with that stressor, that's when the virus goes, oh, it's time, and then it really takes on. It's amazing how that signal happens and how things start to affect us. But if you think about it, you're not really happy, and then get a case of herpes or shingles, right? It's when you are really down, you're really sad, you're really stressed out about something. That's when that hits you. Yes, ma'am.
Describe the cytopathic effects of animal viruses on host cells.
So the cytopathic effect is is the effect that viruses have on cells. So it sometimes changes the morphology, or sometimes changes internal structures, and they can be used diagnostically. And so Trev, right now, all I asked you to know was that cytopathic effect is associated with viruses, because all viruses change the cells that they're infected.
That's a CPE, right?
CPE.
But, going back to the shingles, how do you acquire that in your DNA?
So when the virus infects you, chickenpox, when it infects you, it leaves some of it behind. And so we might have overcome chickenpox, but the nucleic acid is still part of you. And so and it usually, it's funny, but maybe not funny, but it's interesting, that usually it aligns itself in the major nerve pathways. So when you get shingles, it's usually like down the side or on the back or on the head, or someplace where the major nerves are innervating the body.
But is that something that can be passed on to progeny? If it's a part of your DNA?
If somebody is having a current outbreak of shingles, yes. But the meiotic cells are different than the mitotic cells. And the mitotic cells are the ones that are being affected by shingles. So unless there's to my knowledge, unless there is a current outbreak of shingles, you're not going to pass them out. Living.
You said that viruses move by fluid matrices, so that's like lymph and blood?
Not viruses, plasmodium. So viruses can move lots of different ways. A lot of them are transmitted through the mucus secretions. Maybe that's what I meant by that. If I don't know that I wouldn't have said that, but if I said that, Samantha, it would have meant most viruses are transmitted one of two ways: either sneezing or coughing, or through the fecal oral route, and that's through diarrhea or something like that. Okay. It's unlikely that. I mean, I guess it's possible. It is unlikely that if I'm bleeding, that Miranda's going to come and get blood from me on her. Right? She's going to see me bleeding, and here's a towel, put it on there. Right? So it's unlikely that that kind of transmission would happen, unless through sex or something like that, right? But it's
HIV.
yeah, but or Hep B, lots of things. But it's unlikely if somebody's bleeding that you're going to go over there and get blood all over you, right? It's just unlikely that that's going to happen. What else?
Be able to discuss the pathogens and the opportunistic pathogens. I have a list of them.
So we talked about that this morning. For the fungi and the viruses, yes, but not for the parasites. I'm going to stay pretty high level with parasites, mostly because Maya, you know how she is. She's talking about it.
For the fungi and
For the fungi and the viruses, but not for the parasites. There'll be some questions of parasites, but not to the extent of all the different parasites, because we talked about a whole bunch of them. So it's not gonna be to that extent. It might be some of my favorite ones, like Giardia or something like that. Or it might be something like, for instance, Giardia is known to produce a cyst. What route would the organism get into the body? And I'll say something like that. Yeah, I'll say something, droplet nuclei, fecal oral route. Yeah, I'll say something like that. Fecal oral route. What else?
With to differentiate higher and lower fungi, is that with
Vegetative
regards to
structures.
their mycelia?
Mycelia and asexual spores. So the asexual of the lower evolved, the asexual spores are inside a vesicle, and the mycelia are asexual. The higher fungi, their asexual spores are outside a vesicle, and their mycelia is separate. Those are the things. Amy?
I was gonna ask a question to clarify. on here for parasitology, it says we need to know like they help in the clinical manifestations. Do we need to know like for all of them that are listed, or just the thing that you said you're gonna?
Only viruses and pathogenic fungi. And really, when we think about it, right, if you just think about it for a moment, the viruses we talked about were influenza, COVID, arboviruses, right? And so the ones we talked about, arboviruses, were Zika, West Nile, dengue fever. We talked about herpes. We talked about HIV and AIDS. So those are the major viral pathogens that we talked about. With fungi, it's Histoplasma capsulatum, Sporothrex shenyi, Coccidia lacinitis, Blastomyces finitinus, and then the ringworm, right? And that's really it. Candida albicans we did talk about the yeast, but we talked about it producing pseudohyphae. So that might be a question, right? Might be a question: which of the following organisms produces pseudohyphae? And the only one that will make sense there will be Candida.
And that's able to identify
It's the only yeast that's identifiable by morphological characteristics. The others all look alike. You have to do other things.
And we don't even know all of the life cycles for the,
Would you like to?
not really.
Meg already squashed that earlier. Couldn't thank the council Meg for squashing that.
Thanks, Meg.
Actually, she was on cue to make me excited, saying we should do more, but then I think she backed off when her colleagues looked at her phone. And therefore, there you go.
It's a massive.
Anybody else? Remember, it's group. I'm sure you have a plan.
Specifically about COVID-19, like prions was like.
Prions was a little
Yeah,
bit.
like a little bit big.
COVID was huge.
Yeah.
I don't know, I haven't really got all excited about COVID just yet. So I had to go back and look to see what I wrote about. I have no idea what I'm gonna ask about COVID. I wrote some things, but it's not a lot.
I imagine many things like it's enveloped,
Yeah.
it spreads
Like the
by
structure.
droplet.
And something like, you know, I might say something like, which of the following things do we use to, which of the following, all, the following except for were used to help to stop the spread of COVID and all that things on there. You know, there'll be something, there'll be multiple choice. I could do something with the spike protein, but I haven't really thought about that for very much at all. I need to come to a consensus pretty quickly, because I gotta print those things before I leave. And, so I have to come to a consensus pretty quickly, or whatever I'm gonna do.
Okay, open question.
I don't know if you already went over this one or not, but morphology of a bacteriophage, and it's as it relates to the living cycle.
Yeah, we did. So the bacteriophage has a core, has DNA in it. It has a sheath that acts like a syringe, and it has tail fibers that actually recognize specific receptor sites. The takeaway here is that the functionality of the virus is very limited, and so it has something that recognizes where to attach. It has some mechanism by which to get its nucleic acid into the cell, and then the nucleic acid takes over the cell to make the virus. That's really it.
It uses a sheet to inject
The sheet plunges, and it sticks the DNA in.
So that's why it's, you said it was like.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
really
like,
cool.
yeah.
So just some general knowledge on it, not like specifically
Yeah, I can't expect you to have a
like, oh,
PhD
the
in
little-
microbiology.
Okay.
Plus, remember, you're working in a group. And
This
you've
is my
already told me,
portion.
you've already told me how much you love your group.
I love your group so much.
What else?
So a naked, what am I trying to say?
Virus.
Naked virus, they don't have,
An envelope.
yeah,
They only have a
and they
capsule.
fuse with like,
No, no.
Spike?
No. Envelope virus fuse. But the naked ones, they have other mechanisms by which they get in. So they pierce, they poke, they attach, they drill, they do all kinds of different things, but they do not fuse.
Don't have a way to fuse, so they have spikes and edges to penetrate the cell. An envelope
On
can.
envelope perfusers,
They're fused.
yeah, they become one with the cell.
And they take a piece of the cell to
When they-
use
when-
as their new.
When the new viruses are made, as they're leaving, they take a part of the plasma membrane, that plasma membrane becomes their envelope. Of course, that envelope then has spike proteins or stuff on it, so that it looks different, right? But still, the immune system is confused for a little while, it's like,
Cause
you
it's a
look like
piece of
me.
us,
Yeah.
yeah.
You look like me, I'm not gonna hurt you. Until we get when the immune system gets the idea of the spike protein, this doesn't go on.
Will we be required to know about, colloidal silver and gold and a sputter coat?
No. I didn't even think about that when I looked at this.
What about, you mentioned some differences in vaccines and like how one of them is an aqueous solution and.
I don't think I did anything with vaccines at all. That is a Unit 4 topic. So we will cover that extensively in Unit 4.
I'm so excited for you.
And Unit 4 is actually full. It's one of my favorites. Which one?
I just put warning for Miranda and I'll look away.
Oh, when you were doing that, I thought you were talking about the worms coming
That's
out
what I
of
was
the
thinking.
butt.
That's
You
just-
scratch
that's
it-
pretty
you
bad.
scratch your Bahamas, right? So, yeah.
I had to scribble out certain words and I was like, I'm not trying to look at that for too long.
What else? Are we all good?
So we'll need to know like that pinworms or nematoda and like characteristics of exoparasites.
I don't
things
know.
that
Okay,
I-
let me think about that. No, I think I stayed pretty high level because Maya told me no. But I think I stayed pretty high level. I'm pretty sure I asked something about anaerobus, pinworm. But I don't think that I expect you to know the trichinella, the anaerobus, that Necator are all nematoda. But I do expect you to know what nematoda are. Nematoda are the roundworms, so the true worms. Okay? I expect you to know what cestoda is. They are the tapeworms, not real worms. And I expect you to know what the trematoda are, with flukes, not real worms. But I don't think I would have done anything, and now that you said that, I'll go back and look, and if I did something, I'll take it out. But I don't think I said anything like anaerobus, what is it? Cestoda, nematoda, what, I don't think I did anything like that.
And the morphology, we need to know the morphology of those organisms.
Flatworms versus roundworms, yes.
So like the suckers and all the different.
Well, you need to know the functionality of the suckers because that really plays a role in who and what they are, right? So you're only gonna find suckers
Flatworm.
on the flatworms, right? But they're different, right? So if they are flukes, they're gonna be found on one side, but if they are tapeworms, they're gonna be found around the skull lips. So they're really different in the way they're located.
And do we need to know the male and female?
You need to know monacious studies. Yeah. Are you asking, do you need to be able to identify male and female? Probably not, but in practical 4, you will have to.
There'll be like pictures where we need to identify.
Practical 4?
What's that?
In practical 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
In lecture.
On this exam?
Yeah.
I didn't do that. No, I didn't do that.
So it sounds like it's gonna be a lot of matching.
There's quite a bit of matching. When I validate the test, when I say this is it, I will send everybody a note through email saying, this is the final composition of the exam. And it'll say this many multiple choice, this many match, and I'll give you the topic, right? So general characteristics of organisms, pathogens of fungi and viruses, and I know those are there for sure. I can't remember what else I did, because I was doing a lot all at once and sending emails that were incorrect. And, you know, I was doing all kinds of craziness. But once I get done with that, I will send you the final kind of breakdown of what the test is. So,
So I've basically been in school for like 31 years and I've never taken a group test.
so sorry.
I mean, has anyone else ever taken a group test? I'm curious, like, our group was talking about, just a little advice, our group was talking about 2 of us taking the short answer and 2 starting the matching and then coming together for the multiple choice. Do you think that's a?
You can do whatever you want.
I'm just trying to get validation because I'm
I
feeling a
can't
little
give you
insecure.
validation because what works for your group may not work with another group.
Okay. I'll
The one
consult
thing
other
I
groups and
would,
plan on doing
the
that.
one thing I would give advice against is to have a major checker, right? So don't let that happen. If there's somebody, and I don't think we have any people in here that are very domineering. But if we had a domineering person, that domineering person would say, I'm gonna check everything you do, and I would just say, on you. You can just leave my group right now, right? I just think you have to trust each other. I'm not gonna let you fail. I'm not gonna let you fail. Right? To
Would
me-
you recommend that everybody study everything?
No.
That's what
Why
our
would you
group
do that?
wants
That's
to
a
do.
crazy thing.
They decided that, well, I wasn't here, that everybody's just gonna study everything.
Ooh. Well, kudos to them for wanting to do that. What I would do is say, if this is my group right here, if this is my group right here, I'm like, dude, be sure, what viruses? Dude, be sure you know the viruses really well.
Yeah.
Be sure you know the protozoans very well, including the life cycle of malaria. Be sure you know, what do you want, fungi? Be sure you know, I'll take care of all the metazoans. You know what, I'll do the life cycle of malaria. You handle the protozoans. I'll handle the life cycle of malaria and all the metazoans and all the exoparasites, viruses, protozoans, fungi, and now I have my content experts.
I have a question though, but when we're taking the test, it's not divided by each section.
Oh my
so-
God, you're gonna have to talk to each other.
No, I'm just curious on time, that's why.
That's the thing that makes me
Because
nervous.
cause my group and I decided, the same thing, that we're all gonna just study everything.
I don't think you're gonna finish if you do that. Because who's gonna be the expert? What are you gonna do, go around the table and say, what do you think about that, what do you think about that? Hell no, have somebody do something and trust them. And then maybe if you have time afterwards, if there's something that's really difficult, if you think that the multiple choice were the most difficult part, then you all get together at the very end and go through those, especially the ones that are starred, and try to figure out how you come to a consensus. But other than that, you have to trust each other. But to try to understand everything is gonna be a major problem.
I have to do that on every other test.
Yeah.
Except,
This one's twice as long.
who's gonna be in charge then, Meg? Which one of you is going to make the final decision on what should be the answer?
This is a trigger for all the control freaks.
That is correct, which I'm looking at a whole bunch of them right now.
Are all the
Look
control
at
freaks
Tram,
there?
Tram is sweating, oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, Amy's very, oh my God, I'm okay. But
It was the compare and contrast the multiplication cycle of animal viruses with the bacteriophages.
fusion versus drilling.
Okay.
Fusion
Right.
versus what?
Drilling, or piercing, or whatever you wanna talk about. They're just different mechanisms.
Okay, so there's different ways that they index.
I'm sure when Tuesday comes around next week, you'll all be just fine.
We're gonna get an A.
I sure as hell hope so. What?
Two more.
How
Two
many-
more lecture exams.
2 more
and
lecture exams.
2 more practicals, right?
2 more practicals and 1 unknown.
That's fun.
Which, well, Kate's
I'm very
excited about
excited.
that.
I'm excited now
So
because we
before she was
haven't-
like, ah.
You have a map?
Yeah, I have like I thought he was just gonna be like, here's a 2.
So it will be able to identify the exoparasites, insecta, and arca, and vectors, and then it says insecta.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
write those things, I just get them.
Okay, I was just making sure some,
What about compare and contrast the four medically important phyla of fungi, giving examples? And then
For
there's-
medically important phyla of fungi
Yeah.
are the Zygomycota, the Basidiomycota, the Acetinomycota, and the Duomycota, which don't exist anymore.
It also says terms associated with ringworm.
Tinea,
Okay.
Triclophyton, there's a bunch of them.
Okay.
You know why, do you know why I put the thing in terms associated with the unit? You know why I did that? Because one student one time got really mad at me because I didn't say there was gonna be any vocabulary on the exam. And I went, oh my God. It's important that you know all vocabulary. Therefore, I just put a catch-all phrase in there, all terms associated with the unit. Therefore, nobody can come back and say, you didn't say that that term wasn't gonna be on there. I'm like, all terms. All terms are gonna be on there. Because they will show up. Anybody else?
Can you clarify what, etiology, what you're looking for etiology?
Etiology? Etiology is the cause. What's causing it? Anybody else? You guys, I heard something over here.